pleased to have with me on the program Benjamin Dixon. He is the host of The Benjamin Dixon Show. The website is thebenjamindixonshow.com, and you can tweet him at the BPDS or BPD show, right? There you go. Benjamin, welcome. I don't hear you.
Hey, Tom, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Now I hear you. It's great to have you with us. It was great talking with you yesterday on your program. You made an interesting comment to Sean this morning, and I wanted to explore this, that you were concerned about the spectrum that we're confronting from neoliberalism to neofascism. What are you talking about here? Tell me about this.
You know, it dawned on me yesterday watching the protest in Sacramento, and the organizer of the protest in Sacramento is a fervent Donald Trump supporter. It feels as though we're really pushed in between a decision between neofascism or neoliberalism. And for a person like me, a progressive like myself, neoliberalism is not necessarily a choice that I want to run after. But when faced with neo-fascism or proto-fascism or whatever you want to call it, this iteration of white supremacy that Donald Trump is, I want to say flirting with, at a minimum, it's really a difficult spot to be in.
Well, that's a part of the American electorate that the Republican Party has always embraced, whether it was the Willie Horton ads, you know, in the Bush Dukakis race, or whether it was Ronald Reagan giving the very first speech once he had been nominated for president down in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and talking about states' rights. I mean, it's just that Donald Trump is saying it out loud in ways that, you know, Republicans are like, no, you're supposed to talk in code. Don't you know that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the one of the reasons Donald Trump is so successful, that this isn't anything new. But I do think that there's a little difference in the voice, the platform that Donald Trump is leaning to so publicly and blatantly, accepting these types of philosophies and ideologies.
Yeah, it seems to me that if neoliberalism, and maybe we should define that term. I mean, for my purposes, when I talk about neoliberalism, basically I'm talking about the financialization of economies, the deindustrialization of countries, and the rise of both power and wealth to the top 1%, basically, and an increasing and growing disregard for the needs of the other 99%, a dialing back of the welfare state, a dialing back of the social safety net, a more brutal form of capitalism, you're on your own capitalism. Another way to say it would be Thatcheronomics and Reaganomics, I think. And so, are we talking about the same thing here?
No, absolutely.
So if we're saying, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to do, we used to have an economy that was based on manufacturing and mercantilism. Mercantilism being, the protection of domestic manufacturing through trade policy, through things like tariffs and whatnot. And Germany still does. I mean, they're still at 25% GDP is manufacturing, because they protect their manufacturing with VAT taxes, which function as if they were tariffs. We're not. We've gone from 25-30% when Reagan came in down to 11%, as has the UK. We just had Steve Keen on, an economist, talking about this. So it seems like there's one of two directions to go, and maybe this is even the what FDR was struggling with back in the day, when it was fascism versus communism, right? So it seems like there's a couple of different ways to go. If neoliberalism doesn't work, we could either go back to manufacturing and mercantilism, change our trade policies, bring our factories back home, and that seems to be what both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump have been pitching. And that Hillary Clinton is now promoting. She's talking about bringing our jobs back home. So that's a repudiation of neoliberalism. In the opposite direction, you could say, okay, let's shoot over the top of neoliberalism and go for a more aggressive social welfare state, guaranteed basic minimum income for everybody. Take what they've done in Alaska and put it on steroids and make it nationwide, like Thomas Paine wrote about in Agrarian Justice. So everybody has a guaranteed income, full free education across the country, full national health services. In other words, go to a genuinely liberal state, not a neoliberal state. Thoughts?
Yeah. So I think that decision between neoliberalism and neofascism is really one that is almost a false choice, but it is one that we're facing in terms of the presidential election in many regards. But in terms of what we do from here, which is far more important, in my opinion, it's what do we pursue as a progressive base? Do we pursue a means of getting politicians elected from the ground up to the national level so that we can start rolling back some of the more adverse effects of neoliberalism, even if it's not going all the way to the left that we may want to go? There's so many different variations that we can go to. But in terms of this presidential election, it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, where do we go in terms of the presidency? And one of my good colleagues said that, in this regard, we have to do whatever we have to do for the general election, but we have to heed Bernie's call to get people involved on that local level so that we can start implementing policies, or at least looking for politicians that will implement policies to move us further to the left, to give us some type of respite in the middle of this neoliberal storm that we've been in for 30, 45 years.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem, Benjamin, is that nobody's really identified this, at least in the corporate media and the mainstream media. There's no discussion of neoliberalism. There's no discussion of austerity as an actual policy. The bizarre rationalization behind austerity as a policy. And it's because they're part of the corporate media is part of the neoliberal elite structure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no wonder that you have many Democrats who have absolutely no idea even what the Democratic Leadership Council was or what neoliberalism is. It's because those discussions are not being fed to us, and most people aren't taking that initiative or have the time to go and find out these things on their own. So there's no surprise that this is not coming from our corporate media, because they are quite literally funded by this infrastructure in the system.
Right. Yeah. Every time I saw some commentator getting hysterical about how Donald Trump isn't raising enough money, on television, I'm thinking, in other words, he's saying Donald Trump isn't going to have, $1 billion to give to my network for TV advertising.
Absolutely. Tom, and I was wondering, I'm like, at what point is not having an obscene amount of money in politics a bad thing? There's a lot of things to critique Donald Trump on, so many that I don't have time, nor do you, to list them here. But not having a lot of outside influence in his campaign is not one of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing, is that this being a change election year and people looking for alternatives to the waste that neoliberalism / Reaganomics has laid to the American middle class. That Trump's siren song is pretty seductive, particularly for low income, low education whites. This is scary stuff. This is a scary time.
And it's fueling a very public, I don't know which one is worse, to be honest with you. I'm warring with this in my mind every day. Is it worse to have it these types of voices, reclusive and hidden in the background, afraid to come in public, or is it worse to have them open and loud, and at least we see where they are, when they are, and how they are? I really haven't decided.
To have them open and loud because it's generative. It's a thought virus. It's like, back when the Klan used to openly ride and towns had Klan festivals and things, it was a lot bigger organization and there was a much greater embrace of its ideology. I think that there's something to be said for shaming them. And, it's like, we don't go out and congratulate Nazis if they have rallies.
And this is one of the things that really bothers me the most about a lot of my friends who are Bernie or busters, or they are just never Hillary. It's the fact that they don't see the trouble that would ensue from a very public and loud white supremacist movement fostered and inspired by Donald Trump. Yeah, and it's here, it's coming, and look out. We need to batten the hatches down. The BenjaminDixonShow.com is the website. We've been talking with Benjamin Dixon. You can tweet him at the BPD Show. Thanks, Benjamin. Hey, thanks so much for having me, Tom. Take care.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.